And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt it in her body, and she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that the power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But hearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. And he put them all outside, and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the little girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this. And he told them to give her something to eat.
So the focal passage for this week is Mark 5. Please give us a little content for this passage. How does it fit into the whole storyline of Mark's gospel?
What we need to really most pay attention to is the fact that these two stories I'm going to talk about in Mark 5 really relate to the story just above it in Mark 5 and the story just above that in Mark 4. We have 4 stories, boom, 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 right together that teach us about Jesus' authority and his ability to bring shalom, or peace, healing, wholeness, and tranquility to humans and to the world. And so in this series, and other faculty have talked about some of those other stories, but we really see those 4 together as an exercise of who Jesus is and what he desires to bring to us in life.
So then what would you summarize as a key point within this passage, and what is its significance?
I think in this particular part of Mark 5, we see Jesus heal a sick woman and raise a dead girl to life. And in that, we see Jesus' heart to bring healing and wholeness to people. The biblical concept for this that really comes out of the Old Testament is called shalom, and it is God's heart for people to have us be healed and whole and in good relationships with God and ourselves and with each other. And in both of these situations, the first one, we have a woman who has been bleeding for over a decade, and that means she has not only been in pain and has, as the text says, she's gone bankrupt from trying to get doctors to help her. And she was in pain, but she was also in other pain because she was ostracized from her community. Because she was considered ceremonially unclean, she could not be in relationship with her friends and her neighbors and her family. And in healing her of her physical ailment, Jesus also healed her emotionally and spiritually and restored her to health and wholeness in all those domains of life. And then he goes on and he raises a young girl to life. She had already died. And we see him again exercise shalom and bring life and healing to her body. And in doing so, he restored the relationship within the family. And it's just such a beautiful picture we see of God's heart for us, that he is all about bringing healing and wholeness and restoration. As followers of Jesus, that's also what we're about. We are here to help bring healing and wholeness to people and to communities as we help them get to know Jesus and grow deeper in Jesus, as we choose how we function in the world, in our workplaces, in our families, in our neighborhoods. We get to be people who help facilitate healing and wholeness and bring shalom, which is, I think, one of the key applications for this passage.
So what would be some practical applications that people could implement to bring shalom?
I think one is people very often are quick to reject people, and we're quick to make divisions. Well, you voted that way, so you're out. And so one really practical way we can bring shalom in our relationships and our communities is to not do that. Really,
nice.
Instead, learn to listen, learn to give people the benefit of the doubt, learn to have civil discourse, learn to bring people together instead of being quick to divide. And so that's just one really simple way. No matter what our job is, we work with others in some capacity. And so being quick to build bridges, it's not always easy to do. It can be difficult, but it's profound, because communities that are communities of shalom with bridges instead of barriers speak loudly to healing and wholeness, and they tell the world that something's different.
Hello, I'm Dr. Shelley Hogan with the College of Theology, and I'm happy to be here with Dr. Justina Kwapi from Doctoral Studies. And
Hi.
we're going to be digging into Mark chapter 5. When you read these stories, these verses, and you think of the stories that it involved, kind of two there, what were some of the principles or aspects of the story that really stood out to you?
Well, there were quite a few. Healing of the Jairus' child, was really profound. I could just visualize it in my head, how powerful God is and how much he does for us, even when we sometimes don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could picture the woman coming up behind him and to be healed. And I just think of, again, the power of God, to trust in him, to believe in him, and to know that he's always there, even when sometimes we don't always realize he's there, but he's always working and walking and guiding us. And so it was a very powerful and healing, reflective scripture.
Right, and it's two unique circumstances. One intentional, he was on his way to Jairus' daughter, and the other one accidental, so to speak, the woman reaching out to him. So,
Yes.
So when you think of your area of expertise in doctoral studies, what are some of the ways this story and the principles of the story can be applied?
Well, I think the first thing came to my mind of being an instructor for brand new students in the doctoral college, and a chair, to be compassionate, to be caring, to realize where our students are when they come in, because everybody has a lot going on, and sometimes, they falter. And so we need to be there like Jesus was, to pick them up and guide them and help them through the many challenges that happen in a dissertation doctoral program. And so I think the compassion, the patience, and just understanding our students' unique needs.
Yeah,
really
life doesn't stop when you go into higher education. You see, you have all those other issues.
Yeah.
And I know, especially at GCU, we like to consider the whole of the student, their whole life.
Yes, so it's important to feed them, spiritually, academically, be there if they just need to vent about their dissertation or their topic, or things just aren't going exactly the way they want, and celebrate with them those small celebrations and those milestones that they meet. They really want to know that you're with them. I always call my learners on their cheerleader, because I'm continually cheerleading for them to be successful.
And they need that. They definitely need that.
I want to see them at commencement.
Yes, want them to finish. So in your actually study programs and interacting with the students, What are one or two ways that you would guide students reflecting on this story?
I think to just believe in yourself, have the faith in God that He has a hand in this program with you. You're not alone, and to just pray and reflect and take care of themselves. Really, sometimes this can be a lot with work and children and jobs and home, and so to take care of your spiritual well-being in addition to your personal and physical needs. Yeah.
And I think this story also can help remind them that you can reach out. You can reach out to God and to others.
Yes.
Because in both those cases, they did reach out to them for healing and health.
And that the prayer warriors are always ready. And if they need some prayer, they need some time, just for that, then I'm always available. So I think it's important for them to understand that.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. Thank you so much, Justina, for sharing that
Welcome.
and for your heart for the students.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
It's a pleasure.